this video, this is take two because I got interrupted on the last one, is to show you how to lay out your Soleplate and top plate. And what we're going to do is, the reason I'm doing this video on a video instead of teaching you in class is every time I do a demonstration in class, one of the things I've learned is I get more kids that are interrupting, not paying attention. I got to call them out, and it distracts everybody else, so I don't think you guys learn it as well. So if you're individually watching this, I think you're getting more out of it. You're going to need a tape measure, pencil, speed square, and if you were in a real life situation, you would obviously need a blueprint. This is going to be your blueprint, wall layout dimension 2. A couple of things, we went over this, but in case you've forgotten, we're going to lay out a window and door, and then we're going to lay out common studs, cripple studs, all that. You've got a door here. It's a 2868 window, door. The 2868, you split the 28 in half, you get 2 foot 8 inches, and then that is your width. Your width is always given first. Then you get your height, which is 6 foot 8 inches. And your windows over here are 30/50. That's 3 foot 0 inches wide, and then 5 foot 0 inches high. You do not need the heights in this. That comes into play whenever you're cutting your studs for your jack studs and stuff like that, so you do not need that. This is a 12 foot 2x4. You don't need to get like a 16-foot piece of lumber. A lot of times whenever you're making Soleplates and top plates, because they get twisted so bad, this piece of lumber is actually a little bit twisted. But if I were to build a house and to pick out my Soleplates and top plates, I would rifle through the entire stack of lumber and find the best lumber I could for my Soleplates and top plate. Because if they're twisted, it's really hard to build a wall. This is your Soleplate or top plate. Typically, you would lay them out side by side and just take your speed square and mark across both of them. I'm just going to show you how to do one. I figure if you can do one, then you can transfer lines over onto the other. So with that, we'll get started. On this one, we're going to do the door first. We're going to lay out the door, and then we'll lay out the window, and then we'll lay out all your commons and cripples. So from this edge, all right, I'm looking at my plan the same way that I'm measuring here. I'm going to go left or right. It's 1 foot 9 inches to the center of the door. So I come over here, find 1 foot, add 9 to that, I get 21. I'm going to put me a line right here, and I'm going to write CL for center line. That is the center line of my door. All right. My door is 2 foot 8 inches wide. 2 foot 8 inches is 32 inches. 32 divided by 2 is 16. So if I find the center line of my door, if I go this way 16, and I go this way 16, all right, I will have a 32-inch opening, which is what I'm looking for. All right, so if I got center line here, 21 minus 16 is 5. I'm going to put a line at 5. That is going to be the inside edge of my jack stud. And then my jack stud, I know 2x4 studs are 1.5 inches thick. So 5 minus 1.5 is 3.5. That is my jack stud. Your king stud always goes right beside of your jack stud, so I'm going to go back another 1.5, put a mark at 2, and I'm going to put a K there for king stud. All right. So far we marked our left edge of our door. Now we're going to find 21. We're going to take the other half of our door and add 16. 21 plus 16 is 37. We're going to put a mark at 37. That's the other inside edge of my other jack stud. Jack stud still 1.5. 37 plus 1.5 is 38.5. And put a J there. My king stud, yet again, is always beside my jack stud. Go over from 38.5 plus 1.5 is 40. Put another one there and put a K there for king stud. So there I have marked out my jack and kings for my doors. I'm going to do the same thing for my window. My window is giving me the measurement from the right side of the door. It's 4 foot 3 inches. So we're going to hook there. Come over to 51. Put a line there. That is my center line. I like to put a CL just so I know. All right. My window is 3 foot 0 inches. All right. That is 36 inches. All right. 36 divided by 2 is 18. 51. All right. We're going to go this way 18, and then we're going to go this way 18. 51 minus 18, I believe is, let's think about this. 51 minus 10 is 41, minus another 8 is 33. That is the inside edge of my jack stud. I'm going to put a J here. 33 minus 1.5, that's the thickness of my jack stud. 33 minus 1.5 is 31 and a half. All right, there's my jack stud. King stud, always again beside of it, 31 and a half minus 1 and a half is 30. And there's my king stud. Find my center line again, 51 plus half the width of the window, which is 18. 51 plus 18, that's 61 plus 8 should be 69. We put a mark at 69. We're going to put a J to that left edge. So from here to here is going to be my window. And I should have 36 clear inches. And to check that, you can just measure from that line to that line. You better get 36. So there's my jack stud, 69 plus 1 and a half is 70 and a half. That's the jack. My king stud goes right beside of that. 70 and a half plus 1 and a half is 72. So I have a jack and a king for my window. Once you get all that laid out, you can lay out from either side. You can start now. Which side you lay out from? If I start from left to right, laying out my studs, I have to factor that in when I go to put sheeting on. Otherwise, my sheeting will not line on the stud. So if I go from left to right, marking it out, I got to put my sheeting on from left to right. If I go from right to left, marking it out, I got to put my sheeting on from right to left. All right, so you got to keep that in mind whenever you get ready to put sheeting on your wall. Another thing that you're going to do, if this was an exterior wall, all right, if you've got two walls that had already stood up on both sides of your house, and this is that third wall that's getting ready to stand up, you would have to hold this over either 3.5 or 4.5 inches. And what a lot of guys will do is like drive a nail or something and hook their tape measure onto that nail. If you've got a helper, you can always get their help. But you either, depending on if your wall's got sheeting on it or not, hold that over 4 inches. That 4 inches is this wall that's coming in right here. And then you could measure that out. So depending on the type of wall that you're building, be it exterior, and if there's other exterior walls, you got to think about some of that stuff. We're just going to pretend like we don't have that because that gets into a lot more complicated stuff than I want you guys to do right now, but keep that in mind. Our very first stud is going to go on the end. Even though it's obvious that there should be a stud here, I always put a mark there. You come over 1.5 inches. That one's easy. The symbol for a common stud is an X. All right, so put an X there. I should have taught you this by now, but if I haven't, studs go 16 inches on center. All right, this stud right here, here's 16. We don't mark the center of the board. We always mark the edge of the board. We always mark the edge where the stud goes, and we cover up the X. So we go back half the thickness of the stud, which is 3/4. 16 minus 3/4 is 15 1/4. This particular one falls. All right, here's my stud. I'm going to put a big mark that way. This particular one falls over a door. So if it falls over a door, if it's an exterior, then it's going to get a full exterior header. If it's an interior, it's going to get a cripple stud. We're going to call them all cripple studs for now. So if a common stud falls over a window or door, it turns into a cripple stud. Let me say that one more time. If a common stud falls in between a window or door, it becomes a cripple stud. So we got our first stud, our second stud, which is a cripple stud. Our next one still falls between a window and door, so it also turns into a cripple stud, and the symbol for that is C. 48, go back 3/4, which is 47 1/4. I'm going to put an X because it does not fall. There is no window or door here. 64. We go back 3/4 to 63 1/4. We put an X. And typically, I always like to work left to right. That's just because the way we read and stuff. 80 inches, and every 16 is marked with a red square. So if I can find that red square, go back 3/4. That's pretty much all you have to do. So 80 minus 3/4 is 79 1/4. And that particular one, I put an X there, but I wasn't paying attention. I got a jack stud here, so I'm going to scratch out that X. And we're going to put a C there for a triple stud. My next one still falls between my window, so I'm going to put a cripple stud there. I have a jack stud right where a stud would go, so I don't need to put a stud there because the jack stud's going to be there in place of it. 128, go back 3/4, and put an X because we're not in our window anymore. Down here at the very end, Slide on the board and maybe so you guys can see, or someone see. 12-foot lumber doesn't come exactly 12 foot, so if you need to, you can cut it off at exactly 12 foot. One of the things I do, so if this wall was only a 12-foot wall, I would come in 1.5 inches, so 144 minus 1.5 is 142.5. If this wall is part of a longer wall, let's say that this wall was, 40-some feet that way. This last stud, I'm going to get some of this 2x material, I guess. This last stud, it would sit halfway on this Soleplate, halfway on this Soleplate. All right. So you would just find wherever the edge of the board is, and come back 3/4 and make a mark. So it depends on whether or not the wall stops here, or if the wall is going to keep going here. We're going to pretend like the wall keeps going. We're going to come back 3/4. 144 minus 3/4 is 143.25. And we got a comma there. The last thing you have to do is go through with your speed square. This is the easy part. If you've got that part done, go through with your speed square. Put it on these lines and draw a mark all the way across. And this doesn't take all that long. The reason that you need to have a line all the way across is because a lot of times you will get a twisted stud. And what it helps you do is align the top and the bottom of the stud, because you can't put a stud in twisted, because when you go to put drywall or your sheeting on, it's going to make it bulge out, and you're going to end up with a lot of problems. So make sure that you draw a line all the way across, and when you're installing studs, make sure you put those in square. This really helps if you've got a carpenter pencil like this. They're square, you buy them, you sharpen them with a knife or whatever. If you use like a lead pencil on this, your lead just breaks on this wood, and it doesn't make a very dark line. And in stuff like this, you don't want confusion. And all I'm doing is just going through. So if you're doing this activity or this assignment and you've got to get a piece of wood and do this, you have to go through and do this. This is not an optional thing. Even though I know it doesn't take any skill or anything like that, you've got to go through and mark it all the way across. The only thing that would change, if I was doing a real house, I'd put my top plate right here, exactly match it up flush on both ends, and your speed square will mark all the way across both of them at one time. That way you don't have to mark out two of them. It saves you a little bit of time. Thanks.